So, with that, did we want to talk about some honorable mentions first?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, we should talk about some of the titles that we had read previously in 2019 and years before that either had a digital release prior to 2020 but have gotten their print release this year. Because there's a lot of really exciting titles that made their way to a print debut this year, and which everyone should be reading now that they're in print. But
you've got no excuse. You can read them digitally. You can read them in print.
Exactly. So we wanted to highlight these because every title that we're going to be talking about is worth a read. Like, everyone should try out all of these titles. Just because it's not in the top 10 because of our strict guidelines, quote unquote strict guidelines this month, you should still be checking them out.
Yeah, so anyway, without pussyfooting around, everyone should read Blue Flag by Kaito.
Nobody has...
Which we did a podcast episode about, so you can go watch that and learn about why you need to read Blue Flag immediately.
And we already have like 3 or 4 volumes out in print as well, so there's a good chunk of it to read. And
yeah, it's only 8 volumes in total.
Yes, and for those who are perhaps doubtful of our emphatic natures, it's also currently on the Shonen Jump app as well, those 3 or 4 volumes. So really, if you have a Shonen Jump subscription and you aren't wanting to put the money down specifically for the print volume, you just want to try it out, there's also that option. And I expect all of you listeners to be to be reading it, because as Ray said, this is a series that is very near and dear to us. We've done a podcast on it. That was, I think, our first series spotlight. Was it our first or our second?
Yep. No, I think Devil's Line might have been first.
But it's one that really compelled us to talk about it, and it is complete. It is very, very far. Well, it's in a sizable amount of the way through in its print release, and yeah, you none of you have excuses to not be reading it.
You will laugh. You will cry. You will wonder why you didn't pick it up sooner.
Yes. And you will just be in awe at how wonderful a romantic drama can be.
Yes. And another wonderful series that is sort of a lot of people praising it to high heaven for a long time now. Mm-hmm. It's been a long time coming, is Perfect World.
Yes.
This is by Rie Aruga, I think. Mm-hmm. Looking at my shelf. It is a josei romance about an architect and an interior designer, I believe, who, like, they went to the same high school. The girl kind of always liked the guy, but they weren't really, like, close
that
or anything.
Close. They knew each other, but they weren't dating. But
yeah, or like friends or anything even. But like she had a crush on him from afar. He was like the star of the basketball team and everything. And they meet through chance later in life, and he has in the meantime been through a terrible accident that has left him paralyzed from the waist down.
Yep.
And he is now in a wheelchair. And it's a lot about navigating a relationship that involves, different levels of ability. Mm-hmm. It doesn't shy away from sort of the nitty-gritty about having mobility issues, about having a spinal injury. And it to me, it's just an excellent romance. Like, I just love watching these two characters. Like, I mean, it's so stressful, especially reading it volume to volume as it was coming out. It was so stressful reading it, and like you never knew what was gonna happen. But it's like the way that these two go through so much adversity and in the end are just drawn together again is like so romantic to me. I don't know.
It is. It's really lovely. It's also really nice to see a diverse opinion on the like representation that it has, because not our main male character isn't the only one with a spinal disability or with mobility issues in the series, and his opinion or his experience, to be frank, is quite negative with his disability. But because there's other characters who have different relationships with how they came to be paralyzed or why they may be in a wheelchair, you see a lot more of like what the actual, I mean, like with everyone, every person has a different experience, and so it's nice to see more than just like one thing, one way of a disability being portrayed. Plus, all of those side characters are, like, really lovely and have really great relationships as well, so, like... I really like how they help each other, like how Ayukawa's work in... He is an architect, and he focuses a lot on barrier-free architecture. And he is actually based on, like, a real-world architect who has a spinal injury and has been a pioneer in Japanese barrier-free architecture. I know Rie Aruga interviewed him as part of, like, her research for the series. I will, clarify that the series is not Own Voices. Rie Aruga does not have a spinal injury herself. So, take with that whatever grains of salt you personally feel you need to. But I think there's a lot that it does well. There's actually, is it AnimeFeminist has a really good article I think
about this series.
I think it's AniFem.
From, someone in the disabled community who has a very nuanced take on, like, where Perfect World is important and gets things right and where it maybe falls short. I definitely recommend looking up that article.
I'll link it in the YouTube description as well for those who are curious, because it is definitely a good read, worth a read, and always good to see perspectives of like communities being represented when it comes to media. I really liked how the romantic rivals in the series were handled as well. The one girl who's like his caretaker, I got issues with her because she seems to have some boundary problems. But the guy, I really liked how he was handled. I actually like him quite a bit as a character. And it just felt more realistic in terms of like settling. Almost. Of how the expectation and because there is a level, like, obviously being in a relationship, it takes work and compromise and dedication and all of those sorts of things, but when you bring in to a relationship a different level of care needed, it's a larger commitment, right? Which I think that aspect of the discussion of that, or the for our main female character, who prior to this relationship really never had any interaction with anyone with a physical disability, now one of the most important people in her life does, and she has to, like, is she comfortable with that? Is she willing to, like, learn and make herself a quote-unquote more appropriate partner?
And is he comfortable with that?
Exactly. And because for him, obviously, there's a level of, like, not wanting to show your weaknesses or show certain aspects of yourself to the people.
Choosing whether you want, like, your partner to be also your caretaker as well. Because, again, the caretaker that he has turns out to have some boundary problems. He should fire her ass, to be honest. Anyway.
But it is a really wonderful series, and definitely is worth reading, especially if you like romance series, especially if you like josei series. It's just a really strong entry to the genre, and that's saying something, because we got a lot of really great romance titles this year.
So many,
including another one which hasn't quite made the print jump yet, but does have a solicitation for print, being A Sign of Affection, which is really sweet, really lovely. Our main female character in that is deaf, completely deaf. And her romantic interest is a fellow college student, someone who she's introduced to by one of her few friends at university, who is quite a globetrotter. He loves traveling around and learning new cultures and new languages, and so when he kind of runs into, or helps this deaf girl out on a train, and he kind of comes to realize, like, oh, there's a whole culture and a whole language in my own country that I'm not aware of, that being, of course, sign language in the deaf community. And so he definitely, like, is very interested, and just because of his nature wants to learn more about her and how she communicates, and obviously from there a relationship kind of starts taking root between the two.
Yeah, because she's, like, super into him.
Yes.
They have a very cute, like, meet cute. And it's like, from there, they're just both gone. It's sweet. I do... This is another one that is not own voices, just to put that out there. Sue Morishida does point out in the, like, 1/5 columns that she does have a collaborator she works with, who is a member of the deaf community and speaks using signed Japanese, which is different from Japanese Sign Language. So, you know, because her collaborator uses signed Japanese, they went with that for what the character uses.
Yeah.
But it's not own voices, but I do appreciate that in this one, the main character is the one who is a member of this community, rather than, like, the object of the main character's affection.
Yeah.
It's not this fish out of water story about someone diving in. It's someone who was born in it, who went to a deaf school, who speaks sign language, sign Japanese, rather. And, you know, is very used to being deaf, not being able to hear. She was born with it, so...
And also being very used to having to accommodate other people because of her disability. Because not a huge amount of people, I think, generally know sign language within their own country, which is why the deaf community tends to be quite insular to itself.
So she reads lips, and she uses her phone a lot to communicate with people, which I thought was very cute. The ways that the series incorporates, like, how she talks to people through text messaging and the like. And also, it's cute.
Yeah, and also the level of communication that her friends put into her, because obviously she can read lips to a certain extent, But one of her closer childhood friends, he knows signed Japanese. And then compared to her university friends, who she doesn't really, they don't use sign, and she doesn't expect them to, right? And how that kind of, there's a difference in the relationship because of the difference in how they communicate to each other.
Yeah. I also like the level of communication between her and the guy.
The main.
There's a couple different points where it's like, there's that one like foreign chick who's like super into him, and he like keeps intruding on his boundaries, and he's like, please go home. And you know, she like gets up the courage to be like, hey, that bothers me. You know, I need to know what your relationship is. So it's nice to see, you know, especially because she's kind of like a shy character, but it's like, I guess part of her growth, even within the first 2 volumes, is, you know, like realizing that, you know, she wants a relationship with this guy, and that, you know, she's got to go for it, you know?
Yeah.
Because the guy's like, he's going to run off to Malta or something. She doesn't. But obviously he's really into her, too. I really like this, like, almost globetrotter type of character. It feels very true to my experience of, like, you know, of course a lot of the Japanese people I interact with are people who are very passionate about studying English and maybe have some overseas experience, so his portrayal feels very true to that type of person. In a good way, in a charming way. I find him, I like him a lot. So there's that too. Just he's a little, I don't know that I've seen that kind of character before in a shoujo romance. So he also has a hand tattoo.
That he does.
What else? There's so many good, like, romances this year. Not just, like, the straight ones, but also some great BL and Yuri.
Definitely. We got Cherry Magic this year, which is just absolutely adorable. And
it's so cute.
It's so sweet. I just got the 2nd volume yesterday. I haven't read it yet, but as soon as we're finished recording this, I'm reading it.
Office boys in love.
Yes. It's so sweet.
The drama's so cute too. Yeah. The full title of that one is like, whatever, like, when you're still a virgin over 30, you become a wizard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or something.
Something along those lines.
But it's not what that would suggest. It's not that type of manga at all. It's so cute. The guy can, like, read the mind of anyone that he comes into physical contact with, and he's in a crowded elevator one day, and he just, like,
brushes up against,
bumps into this guy who's like this super, like, go-getter in the office. Everyone loves him. He's like the star of their wing, who, like, all the girls are constantly fawning over. And he brushes up against him and realizes he has a crush on someone in the elevator, and he's like, ooh, who is it? And he, like, brushes up against him again, and he's like, oh my god, we're so close, he's so cute, don't look at his face, oh my god, he's so cute. He's like, what? It's me! So, it's just like, yeah, him being aware that this guy who, by all means, should not have a crush on him, definitely has a huge crush on him.
Huge crush on him. Is just, like, totally smitten. Totally gone for him. But then also, like...
And he's so sweet.
Yeah, and he's trying to not make it too weird, because, like, obviously he doesn't want him to know that he knows, because, like, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, obviously it's in the title, he is a 30-year-old virgin, and thus he doesn't have a lot of relationship experience. So he's like floundering as well. He's like, oh god, like, oh, like, how do I feel? What do we do? Maybe this is just like normal, like, boys.
Yeah, it's just kiss it out, guys. It's so cute. There's like umbrella sharing. It is the most innocent office romance I've ever read. Also, the like beta couple with like his friend who's like a neat author.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Never leaves his house, so he's got like an online shopping addiction. And his 30th birthday comes. Yeah. He thinks his friend is crazy, right?
Yeah.
But his 30th birthday comes, and he brushes hands with the cute delivery boy.
Dun, dun,
who's
dun.
like kind of a Yankee. And realizes that he has a cute side because he is obsessed with this guy's cat. And they kind of start a little something as well, and it's very cute. Bonding over cats. We also got, on the other side of the BL spectrum, we got Liquor and Cigarettes.
Yes.
Which is from Ranmaru Zarya, who is quite well known for her sexy art. We had gotten Coyote from her before, and Void, I think, was the other one.
Yes.
And we just got the Birds of Shangrila, the first volume of that. So we are getting a lot of Zarya. I never expected this would happen, but... Obviously she's selling well. For good reason. Yes.
So...
I mean, have you seen her boys?
Yes. Yes, right. Yes, I have.
Anyway, Liquor and Cigarettes is probably my favorite that I've read from her so far. I do like the Birds of Shangri-La, but Liquor and Cigarettes is a one-shot volume about... It takes place in Italy. It's like this liquor store owner and cigarette store owner whose shops are right across from each other. They have known each other since forever, and the cigarette store owner, Camillo, has always had a crush on the liquor store owner, but he's, like, kind of wishy-washy about his feelings, and, like, he says at the beginning, I think I'm straight, so he's trying to figure out, he's in kind of a questioning place, with this whole thing, and Camilla's very patient with, like, him figuring himself out, but some stuff happens and they end up, like, being like, Camilla's like, why don't we have, like, a trial run to see if, you know, you'd actually be into being in a relationship with me. And so that happens, and they have a lot of hot sex because this is Zarya. That's the volume, mostly.
Yep.
There's a gimmick with, like, he's a real lightweight, and he has to, like, practice drinking for this wine tasting competition, but it doesn't matter.
No.
You're here to see them make out.
And they do that a whole lot. You won't be disappointed.
Camillo is super bisexual, and he's super open about being bisexual, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, also, it's not just the boys who are getting their love on. We saw so many amazing Yuri this year as well. Just so many.
Yes. The English debut, well, actually not, because we got Yuri Bearstorm before from Tokyo Pop, but I feel like the first time anybody's paid attention to her stuff in English, we got The Conditions of Paradise from Akiko Morishima. As a 3-volume set, we've got the first 2 out now. They're not under the name The Conditions of Paradise in Japanese, just sort of 3 different short story collections.
Yep.
But a lot of her short stories interconnect. She likes to return to the same couples a lot, so I guess they just decided to throw them together.
Hey, not complaining.
She just, she is an out and proud lesbian creator who loves cute girls who love each other, and specifically cute adult women who love each other. And I am so here for it. Her stories are just pure, joyful escapism, and what else do you need in 2020, to be honest?
Not much. Yeah, her stuff has been kind of a long time coming, and it's really nice that we've gotten to a point where we have now quite a few of her titles, and hopefully with this sort of 3 Conditions in Paradise releases, we will see more of her stuff getting licensed, just because I think people are now introduced to her stuff that isn't, franchise based, with like Yuri Bearstorm, and she's able to be more not well known, but like now she has her foot in the door for English speakers, as it were. So yeah, hopefully this, and I'm sure it will, just lead to more and more of her titles being licensed and released, because they're dang good. I mean, you can definitely tell her stuff was written by a woman who loves and appreciates women. It has she has such a almost reverence for how she draws her women, because she knows what she likes, and so she's going to be totally playing to her own interests there, which is great.
Yep. They often align with my interests. So. I don't know. Her girls are just so soft. They're so cute. So I am so happy that we're getting her stuff. Yeah. We also got another of my Japanese language Yuri favorites, which is Our Teachers Are Dating. This is another like sweet escapist one. It's I believe the gym teacher and the school nurse at this like high school question mark? Middle school or high school, I don't remember. They are dating, and everyone in the school knows it. Principal knows it, all the teachers know it, all the students know it, and they are so down. They are super supportive, always cheering these 2 teachers on, and it's just them being cute and in love, and, navigating different steps in their relationship. The first volume has, them navigating their first time together, and, yeah, it's just really wholesome.
Yeah, it's one that, like, I'd heard a lot of really good things about, just because of what I'd heard you talk about, Ray, and also just, like, it's won, or I don't know if it's won awards, but it's quite popular in Japan. So, the fact that, like, I was really excited when it was licensed, and it didn't disappoint. And I didn't expect it to. It was very, very good. And again, like with a lot of the titles we've been talking about, just in this first, we've only been talking about romance for one in this mentions, but But I think there's something really lovely about watching or following, reading about couples that are just hitting it off and like not having too much personal drama, and they're well suited and things are going right for them in a time where there's not too much going right in the real world. So like, again,
you will definitely notice this trend coming up again higher up on our list.
Yes, exactly. There's quite a few of those coming up for our actual 5. But yeah, I mean, romance has had a strong year in 2020. Love is not dead. Let it be known, love is not dead. But it wasn't just romance that we wanted to mention in this honorable mention section. There's been every sort of genre, whether that be comedy, whether that be music, whether that be everything, really. There's, I mean, again, another title that's made the print debut this year that I was really excited for, really happy to see it make its way to print, was Wave Listen to Me. Helped definitely by the most recent anime. Wonderful series. Love it. And I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't initially going to be a print release, just because it is by Hiroaki Samura of Blade of the Immortal fame. So I don't know, I maybe presumed that because his other previous titles had been so popular that it would just be a shoo-in for his stuff to be in print. But I am sure happy that we've gotten print now, because I can encourage people to read it. It's a great series. Love it. Love Minare. Wonderful character. And it's just fun. Like, the whole cast is really great to follow. But that one, oh my god, so much personal drama and bad decisions. But, like, understandable bad decisions. Human bad decisions. You're like, girl, you're not helping yourself. You make all of the worst decisions. She is such a mess. But I understand that messiness. That is the messiness of, like, relatability right there. Like,
I just love the subject matter being radio. I'm a big fan of, like, radio dramas. So, and just, like, that format, I think is such a fun thing to explore, and I love how it does it. I definitely, you definitely see, like, what makes her such a compelling radio host, even if it makes her a complete and absolute mess in the rest of her life. Another, like, one that made the jump to print that I wanted to mention is Heaven's Design Team, which is a bit more older elementary school and middle school friendly. It's about a team of angels in heaven who are tasked by God with creating the animals of the world. And it's just the sort of fun interactions between the angels and weird animal facts. the series. There's the one angel who's obsessed with, like, making animals, like, sex organs really weird. She's like a gothic Lolita or something. And then there's another one who, like, his magnum opus is the horse. That's his one masterpiece. Yeah. So, but that's the only thing he can make. So anytime he's tasked with creating something, he just remakes the horse. Yes. Except now it's a seahorse. Or this time it's a horse with stripes on it.
And he's trying so hard to make a unicorn. Like, he's trying so hard. And also Pegasus. And they're like, physically, this just doesn't work. Like, you can't have a horse with wings, because, like, why would you have wings? It can't support itself. It would, stop trying to make horses. It's like in actual evolution, how everything's just a crab. Like, everything just comes back to a crab. I feel like that was him. He invented the crab, so now everything gotta be a crab.
And then there's the one who loves beautiful things, and made the bird, and the one obsessed with making things that he can eat. So yeah, basically each chapter is pretty short and covers a couple different animals. There's usually like an A plot, B plot, and C plot going on. And at the end you get like an actual couple pages just explaining the animal. So I like this series because it makes me envision like my future classroom where I'm definitely gonna have this on the shelf. It's great, like the most extreme, like Zaboomafoo vibes. So if you like animal facts, this one's also getting an anime, so yes. Look forward to it.
Best time to jump on it is now. Get ahead of the curve. One of the other series that I've been following for a little longer than this past year, but also made its print debut, also kind of technically ended, was Chainsaw Man, one of Shonen Jump's most like unconventional shonen series, to put it mildly. I didn't read this like when it first started, but I did start reading it last year. Really was it, I mean, I think anyone who's familiar with Chainsaw Man, which many people are, it is definitely one of the more popular titles, or was one of the more popular titles in Jump, knows that it's not what you would typically expect of the series. Yes, it has a protagonist. Yes, he's fighting like a larger problem. But if you're familiar with this mangaka, Fujimoto, and his previous work, Fire Punch, you know that there's gonna be some stuff in there that doesn't quite fit what would be typically acceptable for manga. This Chainsaw Man is definitely toned down from Fire Punch, but there's still a lot of stuff you wouldn't expect to be in Jump necessarily. And Fujimoto does what he does best. There's a lot of just like over the top hyper violence, just like absurd amounts of gore and violence and obscenity as well, but it works. It works in a way because the characters are very interesting. Denji as a main character is very unlike a normal shonen protagonist. But I find Fujimoto's stuff, it's kind of a shame that he has so much shock value in his series, that he relies on just the most some themes that will get people upset, because it means that people ignore kind of what the larger message is, right? Or kind of ignore the larger point. And I don't know. This is coming from me, who actually did enjoy Fire Punch quite a bit once I got what it was doing. And Chainsaw Man was a similar experience. It took a little while for me to get what it was doing, but it's great. It's certainly, like, if you like bizarre, weird, if you don't mind like a lot of violence, a lot of just gross stuff, like vomiting and things like that, then try it. But, you know, if you are more wary of those sorts of things, then don't. But I do think that within all of the stuff, within all of these things that would make a lot of people go like, is that appropriate for Jump? Is this, like, this is quite out there. Like, we have a lot of there's a lot of death going on that we see on page. But it's such a Fujimoto is great, I think, he has a very cinematic art style, for one. It feels like you could adapt any of his works into a film very easily. If it had, like, if it was an unrated film, you're not gonna get this in cinemas necessarily, but it's you can tell he's a cinema lover, that he likes, I'm sure, really enjoys a lot of schlocky B movies and C&D movies, but there's a real heart to it, and amidst all of that, his stories are character stories. They're about the people within this setting and how they survive. And Denji, I think, even more so than his protagonist from Fire Punch, kind of is emblematic of being a result of your surroundings and like how, but also, I don't want to talk too much about the ending of this first part for the end of the Shonen Jump part, but it's really interesting to see how Denji has grown and changed, and how his situation has changed, and how he's been affected by the people that he's known over the course of the series thus far. It's really, 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 really good. And there it is, that, but with both this and his previous work, there is more going on than just trying to be like crazy out there and offensive and gross and whatever else. It's worth the read if it sounds like your thing. Obviously another series with an upcoming anime. And the first print volume just came out last month or the month before, so give it a read. And the first 97 chapters, I think it is, are on Shonen Jump, and it ended last week, and we'll be making the transition to Jump Plus, where it is less stringent with what can and can't be shown, so I'm sure it's just gonna get even crazier from here.
Yeah, this is one that I need to check out, and I just haven't yet. It looks like fun.
It is. It's fun, and then it's heartbreaking, and then it's everything that it needs to be, and it's done really, really well.
All right, and I guess on the complete opposite side of the spectrum from Chainsaw Man, I wanted to just briefly mention a title that I guess was meme-ified for a while, and I had actually read it and been following it in Japanese since last year, but it finally made the jump to English, and that is BL Metamorphosis, which is Metamorphose no Engawa in Japanese. This is the Fujoshi grandma manga that was in a meme last year or something, year before, I don't know. But this is just an incredibly soft and heartwarming, wonderful story about a 75-year-old woman who decides to go to the bookstore and happens to be kind of just browsing around, and she sees a cover that she finds really beautiful. She picks up the book and decides to just get it on a whim, and that is the birth of her love of BL manga. And she ends up going back to get volume 2 and everything, and ends up striking up a very sweet friendship with one of the clerks at the bookstore, who is a high school girl, and they just sort of have this friendship through their mutual love of BL manga and this particular author, and this particular series, and it's just about finding friendship in fandom and in shared hobbies, and it's wonderful. These are two people who are lonely in their own ways, and they find solace and friendship and companionship in each other because of this hobby that they just happen to have in common, and it's really sweet. So
yeah, and I really like how this series portrays hobbies as like something you can have at any age, especially for, because I think BL is definitely seen as like a young person's interests. It's typically like teenage girls or young women in their 20s and 30s. You don't see it's not that there's not grandmas out there who are shippers, but they don't tend to be the faces of fandom. And the fact that two women from such different generations and at such different ages have this commonality, and because of it they have this friendship, is just really lovely. And what they can learn from each other because of that, because of their different experiences and their different ages. It's super.
I love I love seeing the little like similarities and differences between them. Like, one of like my favorite little moments is that you have like the contrast between Urara, the high school girl who keeps all of her BL books in a secret shame box under her bed, and then Ichinoi-san, the grandma, who keeps hers like proudly displayed next to her TV. And like, I love how Urara, like, she sees this ideal relationship that she can aspire towards, but Ichinoi-san like sees, she looks at these two boys who are in love and she remembers her marriage. She's since lost her husband just due to old age, but the fact that they can see the same emotions and the same like beautiful love and relate to it in similar ways, but also in different ways because of their different stages in life, but still enjoy going to Comic-Con together.
I also like, and I mean, this is just someone coming from me who has a lot of older people in her life. When you get to a certain age, you just don't give a shit. Like, you don't feel that embarrassment anymore. You're just like, sure, I have this gay relationship, perhaps pornography on my shelf. What of it? I'm an adult. Like,
yeah, well, much respect for sure.
The power move of that.
Respect to the proud displayers and to the secret shame box havers of the world.
But yeah, it's very,
very heartwarming,
very, very sweet, and also quite short. I think it just ended with its 5th volume, so it's also,
I think so,
not a huge commitment.
There's also, in the heartwarming side of things, we got the 1st volume of Love Me for Who I Am, or Fukaboku, which is an LGBTQ manga about a non-binary protagonist named Mogumo, who ends up getting a job at a otokonoko, like, maid cafe. So otokonoko is basically like, it's a fetish. It's basically femboys. Despite how that premise sounds, it's a very sweet series about characters from a variety of identities, who all sort of find freedom in different ways, find solace in different ways in working at this otokonoko cafe. And yeah, this one is not own voices, and I think that you can see in some of the ways that it differs from something like Our Dreams at Dusk, or even like I Want to Be Your Girl. But I am still really eager to read more, and I'm happy that we're getting more series like that in English.
Yeah, I also really appreciated in that particular series and how obviously most of these kids have like different sexualities, different gender identities, and just because they work together doesn't mean they are all fall under the, or mostly fall under the LGBT plus umbrella. They don't inherently understand each other, and it's how because of that, just because you are something and you belong to a larger community doesn't mean you inherently understand an individual and their experience. But also taking the time and recognizing that in yourself, and taking the time to be able to understand and communicate those feelings of unsurety and confusion, and trying to relate to those whilst also knowing that you're not always going to inherently understand other people's experiences.
Yeah, which is actually one of the messages that I enjoy the most from Our Dreams at Dusk as well. But yeah, incredible year.
Yeah, yeah.
We've gotten so many high-profile titles as well, from Maison Ikkoku and Mermaid Saga, from Rumiko Takahashi. We got Blue Giant, which is one of the most influential titles to come out of Big, Comic Big, I think is what it's called, and that magazine.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you're a fan of music manga. Another music manga that we got, it isn't technically its first debut, but we got the entirety of Beck this year. All 34 volumes digitally, for those inclined to read it, which I know is a long, bemoaned, unfinished series in print, thanks to Tokyo Pop. So if you are wanting to actually finish the series, it's available now. We didn't even talk about Kageki Shoujo, which was a really exciting announcement or license and a really exciting debut, and most recently,
and even more exciting now that we're getting the whole thing.
Yes, followed by the sequel / continuation license, which is super duper cool. Regardless of your favorite genre to play around with in manga, to read about, there's really something for everyone. All of the publishers.
We got new Fushigi Yugi this year.
Yeah. I know.
What is this year?
Soul Eater has a new fancy edition coming out. There's just so much. Toilet Bound Hanako-kun made its way to print, which I'm super duper happy for because I love that series. Another series definitely helped by its anime adaptation. There's just...
We finally got the Apothecary Diaries, which is huge in Japan.
It's kind of incredible at how much, despite being in the midst of a global pandemic, how much manga and light novels we got this year. It's just crazy.
Yeah, what even? What even? I mean, I'm glad.
Yeah. Don't take this as complaints. Seriously, and obviously, of course, we saw a lot more digital debuts or digital first debuts from many publishers, just because, again, we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and thus the publishing industry is not working to the capacity it once was. So we've had a lot of schedule shifts, but even so, we are getting literally hundreds of titles every month. Hundreds of titles of new debuting and ongoing and ending series. There's just so much of everything to read. You cannot complain with regards to choice for the manga industry in 2020.
Yep. And for your proof, we just spent an hour talking about titles that aren't even on our list.
Exactly.
Which is why we are going to be splitting this off as a bit of a prequel to the actual list, which will come out after this, I assume.
I think I'll put this as the 0.5, but it'll go up the same day. So if you are wanting to listen to both, then then, it'll be there. It'll be there for you.